You ever walk into a room and know right away you don't belong, not because you're lost, but because everyone else thinks you're invisible? That's how it was for Sarah Mitchell, slumping into the back row of the National Math Symposium at Crestwood University, looking like she'd taken a wrong turn from the janitor's closet, hair in a loose ponytail, thrift store cardigan, shoes scuffed from 1,000 nights on her feet. Every set of eyes in that auditorium, badges flashing Princeton, Cambridge, MIT, all those heavy names ran over her like she was part of the furniture, just another nobody who'd somehow slipped past the velvet rope. It's funny, these people. They talk numbers like gospel, but the real calculus happening was the arithmetic of ego, the geometry of exclusion. Professor Harrington, the main act, all silver hair and smug smile, couldn't help himself. Let's remember, folks, this symposium is for those who truly understand mathematics. And every side glance, every snicker, was a shot fired at Sarah. She sat there tracing the ragged edge of her notebook, a hand-me-down, initials worn nearly smooth, while grad students and postdocs, dripping with privilege, swapped jokes about whether she was here to sweep the floors or just get a free cup of coffee. No one cared who she was. No one even bothered to ask, "You know what I mean?" That kind of quiet, where the only thing louder than the whispers is your own heartbeat. Sarah had known it her whole life. Flashback to her as a kid, watching her mother get picked apart at charity events for wearing last season's dress. Or her father, hands shaking from illness, teaching her prime numbers at a kitchen table that reeked of Lysol and pride. "Numbers don't care who you are, Sarah," he'd say. "They only ask that you see them clearly." And that's what she did, learning algebra after her daughter went to sleep, tackling number theory on greasy diner napkins between double shifts, piecing together theorems from used textbooks and half-remembered conversations, building a mind as sharp as any PhD in the room. Even if the world refused to see it.so when Harrington started his lecture, all high talk of modular forms and grandstanding about credentials, Sarah listened, really listened, because, for her, the numbers on the screen were an old song, not some foreign language. She saw a crack, a subtle mistake in his proof, the kind of thing that could knock over a decade's worth of research like a row of dominoes. She raised her hand, tentative, sure, but unshakable. You should have seen the room. Silence, then a wave of snickers. Harrington tried to cut her down. "You work in facilities, I presume?" And the crowd lapped it up, every insult a punchline. But Sarah didn't blink. She pointed to the board, clear and steady. "Your substitution in line 3 assumes the function's continuous, but the boundary conditions don't support that, do they?" That stopped him cold. For a moment, it was just her, Harrington, and the equations, no degrees, no badges, no crowd. The tension in the room went from mockery to disbelief in a heartbeat. Someone finally spoke. Dr. Evelyn Chin, visiting from MIT, voice tight. "That's the Takahashi transformation. It was published last month." "How did you know it?" Sarah just shrugged. "I didn't. I just saw it." Harrington tried to recover, called it a lucky guess, maybe something she'd stumbled on by accident. But Dr. Chin shook her head. "No one stumbles onto this." She advanced the field in 10 minutes. Now you could feel the room flip. Every sneer faded, every note-taking hand paused. The student who'd mocked her put his phone down. The woman with the diamond studs who'd snickered went pale. Sarah kept going. When the dean flashed another, unsolvable problem on the screen, she solved it. Then another, and another. Each answer, each new proof, unraveled decades of accepted wisdom. The whole audience, people who doubted she even belonged in the building, watched as Sarah's solutions stacked up, elegant and unexpected, a kind of quiet music only a true mathematician can hear. What nobody realized was how many times Sarah had been here before, maybe not in a lecture hall, but in laundromats, hospital waiting rooms, diners, always with her daughter's gentle breathing beside her, always with her notebook open, fighting off a world that kept insisting she was less. Every chalk mark was a defiance. Every solution was an act of faith. And now, in this room where no one had wanted her, every heavy credential was suddenly chasing her shadow. The aftermath was wild. Clips of her board work went viral. Invitations poured in from the same places that had ignored her. All the old gatekeepers desperate to ride her coattails. Those who had mocked her, now their reputations shriveled. Some tried to apologize, some sent careful emails, But Sarah didn't bother replying. Her answers, her dignity, spoke for themselves. You ever see poetic justice that perfect? She stood at new podiums, this time, a blazer instead of a cardigan, her daughter watching from the front row, telling anyone who'd listen, genius doesn't care about your badge or your title. It hides in plain sight. Don't judge a mathematical mind by its shoes or day job. The applause was thunderous, but the only thing that mattered to Sarah was the promise she'd kept to her kid. You don't have to wear armor to win. You just have to show up and do the work. 2 years later, Sarah lectured at MIT. The same people who'd once sneered now quoting her theorems, her daughter already scribbling equations in a notebook with Mitchell etched on the cover. Even her husband, a quiet billionaire who'd never tried to save her, just believed, stood in the shadows, smiling. The world had finally seen what she'd always known. Dignity isn't handed out at the door. You earn it. You build it, piece by piece. Every time you refuse to sit down and shut up. So here's my question. What do you think? Does brilliance need credentials to matter? If you'd been in that room, would you have recognized Sarah for what she was? Or would you have laughed along? Does her story make you trust in second chances? Or does it just expose how deep our prejudices run? Drop your thoughts below, argue it out. Because if we don't talk about what genius really looks like, we'll keep missing it every time it walks through the door.